Lost is the least skilled healer, limited to a basic healing spell, which leads to his expulsion from the party. Those around him brand him a clueless loser, unaware of the extraordinary power he secretly possesses. What will unfold when the weakest healer reveals himself as the mightiest adventurer? The tale begins with a young girl stranded alone after goblins destroy her carriage. The goblins are ready to finish her off, but suddenly a mysterious boy appears to defend her. The girl is astonished by the strength of this adventurer. Years later, Lost is relaxing at the guild when a girl approaches him seeking to team up. The entire guild halts, shocked that anyone would want to partner with Lost. Lost is taken aback, confused as to why she chose him, but she points to the sign he holds indicating he's recruiting, introducing herself as Narcina, a martial artist in need of a partner. Before Lost can respond, the guild receptionist Amherst rushes over and grips Narcina's shoulders. She bluntly informs her that Lost is useless. True, he's a healer, but he only knows that one feeble healing spell. Despite his years in adventuring, he can't cast significant healing magic or heal multiple people. The townsfolk see him as a joke. A crew named Blade of Lightning took him in briefly, but he was so ineffective they eventually let him go. Now, viewed as a failure, no one wants him on their team. Amherst cautions Narcina, warning her that she won't earn anything with someone as clueless as Lost, but Narcina has plenty of cash, so profit isn't her concern. To emphasize her point, Narcina pulls out a hefty bag of money, clearly unaware of the dangers of the streets. She'd be robbed in a place like Detroit. Amherst advises her to be cautious, as many adventurers here don't play by the rules. Narcina thanks Amherst for the advice, claiming she'll keep it in mind, though her demeanor suggests she hasn't fully grasped the warning. It's clear she didn't quite understand Amherst's message. Amherst assumes Narcina is new to this world and offers to connect her with some beginner-friendly adventurers to help her navigate the day without getting robbed. Of course, she'll charge a fee for her assistance. Narcina is grateful but has already decided that Lost is the only one she wants to team up with. She's committed to that choice. Amherst still doubts it's wise, but since Narcina is determined, she starts the paperwork to make it official. Curious about the documents, Narcina asks, and Amherst explains they need to sign to be recognized as a guild team. Lost completes his section of the paperwork and then asks Narcina to add her signature. She was distracted by him and gets surprised, but she proceeds to sign. Once Lost pays the commission, they're officially a party. As they exit the guild, Lost discusses the Martat Labyrinth, their next destination. No one has ever fully explored the Martat Labyrinth, leaving its depths and the beasts within a mystery. Naturally, adventurers flock to try their luck, chasing the potential rewards at the end. This influx of adventures has turned Martat into the largest labyrinth city. Narcina absorbs every word from Lost, though she feels a bit anxious and asks if they can dive into the labyrinth immediately. Amherst had cautioned Lost against taking Narcina into the labyrinth too soon, given her inexperience, and he remembers, but brushes it off. Due to the magic leaking from the labyrinth, monsters can appear in various locations around the city. They can emerge in mountains, forests, wetlands, and plains, but the plains are the safest, as only weak monsters appear there. Typically, novice adventurers start battling in the plains for practice, but the area is so vast it can be hard to find a monster. In contrast, monsters swarm the labyrinth. As long as they don't venture too deep, the monsters aren't too formidable, so Lost believes it's the quickest way for Narcina to enhance her skills. Narcina is fully on board with Lost's plan, and they continue toward the labyrinth's entrance. Excited to contribute, she declares she'll take the lead, as fighters should always be at the forefront. Lost usually doesn't hold back in the labyrinth, but seeing her enthusiasm, he allows her to take charge, though he starts to doubt her ability to handle a fight. But she quickly dispels any doubts. Narcina proves she can fight, dispatching a group of goblins effortlessly. She takes them out without breaking a sweat, leaving Lost genuinely impressed by her skills. After the goblins fall, they drop magic stones, which Lost collects. He explains to Narcina that adventurers exchange these stones at the guild for money. Curious about the guild's use for the stones, Narcina learns they contain magical energy and are utilized in various tools and equipment. Most adventurers are aware of this, but Narcina hasn't focused much on academics. They end up with 5 stones, and while goblin stones aren't worth much, it should be enough to cover their lodging for the night. Lost suggests they can either head back now or delve deeper into the labyrinth for more rewards. Narcina is having a great time, so she eagerly opts for going further. As they venture deeper, Lost suddenly yanks Narcina back. Confused at first, she soon sees him pick up a rock and toss it onto the tile ahead. The ground gives way. It's a trap. If Lost hadn't intervened, she would have plummeted into a deadly pit. Stunned, Narcina asks how he noticed the trap. Lost points out that the tile was a different gray, which tipped him off. Impressed, she reminds him that identifying traps is typically a thief's specialty. She wonders how a healer like Lost is so adept at this. He shrugs it off, claiming years in adventuring have taught him a few tricks. They continue through the labyrinth, but soon encounter an orc roaming the corridors. Lost is taken aback. Orcs are mid-level threats. They shouldn't be found this high up in the labyrinth. Seeing the orc's size, Narcina asks if they should retreat. Lost believes they can handle it, confident in their combined strength. However, he won't force her to fight if she's not ready. Narcina trusts his judgment and agrees to fight if he thinks they can win. They prepare, and she charges straight at the orc. But her kick lands like a blow against solid rock instead of a creature. The orc swings its club, aiming to smash her. Narcina manages to block it with her hands. The force is overwhelming, pushing her into a corner as the orc readies another attack. Lost leaps in, delivering a precise stab that takes down the orc. He checks on Narcina, asking if she's okay. Amazed, she expresses her gratitude for his timely rescue. Yet she's curious how a healer like him managed that. Lost brushes it off, saying he's acquired some combat skills over time. But they still have work ahead, so they collect the magic stone from the orc. It's significantly larger than the goblin stones, packed with more magic, promising a better payout. Lost offers Narcina the choice to return to the guild, noting they've earned enough for the day, and she's proven herself. However, Narcina isn't ready to stop. She wants to keep exploring. Lost agrees, and by the end of their adventure, they've gathered a substantial number of magic stones. Upon returning to the guild, they hand everything to Amherst, who is astonished by their haul in just half a day. Then she notices the orc stone and immediately starts scolding Lost. She's furious because she specifically warned him against taking Narcina into the labyrinth, especially near mid-level areas given her inexperience. Lost defends himself, stating they never ventured deep into the labyrinth. They remained on the beginner level. The plan was to battle goblins, but somehow an orc wandered up to their level. Narcina supports Lost's account, convincing Amherst to trust him. Besides, it's not an outrageous story. There have been numerous reports of high-level monsters appearing in beginner zones. Amherst is puzzled about what's happening in the labyrinth, but she suspects it's not good. Not that she cares too much. Her pay isn't enough to worry about it. She then asks Lost if he plans to sell all the gems they've gathered. Lost confirms, and Amherst's demeanor shifts dramatically. She becomes overly enthusiastic as she starts preparing his payment. Narcina notices Amherst's excitement over buying the magic stones, and Lost explains that guild staff like her earn a hefty commission from adventurers. When the money is ready, Lost is stunned by the amount, but Amherst reminds him that half belongs to Narcina. Lost is aware, but even his share is 10 times what he earned with Lightning. Realization hits him that Lightning Blade had been shortchanging him all along. Amherst finds that amusing, but Narcina interjects, reminding her that the guild is supposed to resolve pay disputes. Amherst offers to help Lost reclaim his money if he wishes. He ponders for a moment, but ultimately decides to let it slide. He's found a new group and wants nothing to do with the Lightning Blade anymore. Once Lost departs, the branch manager of the guild makes an appearance. While Amherst counts her coins, the dashing manager approaches, inquiring if Lost had just visited. He needs to confirm that Amherst didn't send Lost to any teams. She insists she wouldn't dare send that fool anywhere, but mentions one girl was eager to partner with him, leaving her no choice. Meanwhile, Lost and Narcina arrive at an inn greeted by the innkeeper's daughter. She asks if Narcina is the new addition to his party, and Lost confirms. He's curious about how she already knows this. The girl explains that news travels fast. No one expected Lost to find a partner, but she quickly shifts to ask if they're here for a meal. Lost is definitely up for food, but first he wants to book a room, so he approaches the girl's mother. Mary smiles, asking if they prefer one room or two, teasing about sharing. Narcina blushes at the suggestion, but Lost quickly insists on separate rooms. Truth be told, Narcina wouldn't mind sharing a bed with him, though she keeps that to herself. Later that night, they both settle in for sleep. Alone in her room, Narcina recalls the first time she met Lost years ago. He had rescued her from a dangerous situation, using his basic healing spell to mend her injuries. She felt immense gratitude that day. In that moment, she vowed to become an adventurer and stay by his side, no matter what. Since then, Narcina dedicated herself to training relentlessly, and when she learned Lost was ousted from his old party, she rushed to the capital to be first in line to join him. But now, lying in bed, she realizes Lost probably doesn't even remember her. Not that it's shocking. She's changed a lot. She's taller, her style is different, and she even dyed her hair blue. It's as if she's a completely different person, and now that she's here, she sees Lost is far more skilled than she imagined. He doesn't need her protection like she thought, but even if he never recognizes her, she's resolved to support him. Still, she wonders why people in this city view Lost as an idiot, despite his true strength. The narrative shifts back to the past, showing Lost engaged in a fierce battle against a Hydra. Fighting alongside his former team, they're struggling, and the crew's thief is badly injured. Lost steps in to heal her. She asks if his healing spell can counteract poison, and he admits it can't. But if he helps her regain her strength, she'll manage the poison herself. The thief complains, and their leader snaps, telling them to stop whining and hurry with the treatment. The thief retorts, telling their foolish leader she's not fit to fight. The boss turns to Lost, commanding him to fix her up. Lost reminds him that he had asked for some antidote, but the leader was too stingy to buy them since they were expensive. The leader turns it around on Lost, blaming him for only knowing basic healing spells as the team's healer. He then calls on Armia, the magician who's paralyzed with fear, to cast magic on the Hydra. She snaps out of her daze and launches a fireball at the creature, but it has no effect. The leader, frustrated and realizing his crew is useless, understands they're in over their heads. He retreats, shouting for everyone to fall back. Armia follows him, and Lost assists the thief Siberia by offering her support. The next day, Lost is blamed for the mission's failure and is expelled from the group. Siberia tells him it's his fault they couldn't defeat the Hydra, but Lost counters that she and the leader were too hyped up, having stayed up all night. The leader, feeling called out, asks if Lost is accusing them. Lost insists he's not, but they turn to Armia for support, feeling intimidated. She crumbles under pressure and points at Lost, blaming him for everything. It turns out, Lost was dreaming about all this, waking up to find the memory still haunts him. He drinks some water, reflecting on how something similar happened 6 years ago. Back then, he was already labeled a fool, but he had grand aspirations of becoming a top-tier adventurer. That's when a certain crew approached him, and he eagerly accepted their offer. But they had no intention of using him for healing. They threw him right in front of the monsters, treating him like bait. Lost dashed away, evading their strikes, reflecting on how he'd faced this treatment throughout his life as an orphan in the maze. Yet that didn't make it any less painful. Once the monsters grew tired of pursuing him, they turned their attention to his companions, annihilating them. Barely escaping with his life, Lost realized that no one would ever view him as a true adventurer. That's when he stumbled upon goblins attacking a carriage. Inside, a girl cowered from the creatures. He couldn't explain why, but he felt compelled to intervene. He thought perhaps he could sacrifice his worthless existence to shield her, making his demise meaningful, but the monsters overwhelmed him. When he regained consciousness, he found the girl before him, thrilled that he was awake. She informed him that the knights had arrived just in time to rescue her, and he felt foolish for failing to protect even one girl. Yet she expressed her gratitude, saying the knights wouldn't have made it without him buying her some time. She even remarked that he looked impressive while battling those monsters. That's when he noticed her injuries, prompting him to quickly use his healing spell, and she thanked him once more. He admitted that healing was his only skill, then recounted the entire tale of how his crew had used him as bait, which broke her heart and brought her to tears. In that moment, she made a decision. She declared her intention to become an adventurer when she grew up, promising to join his party and protect him. Lost felt moved by her words, but after she departed with the knights, he pondered how improbable it seemed. She likely hailed from a noble lineage, making the idea of them teaming up one day feel unrealistic. However, her words ignited a flicker of hope within him, prompting him to give adventuring another chance. He sought out mentors to teach him swordsmanship and magic. Though he only had his healing spell as a healer, he mastered various other abilities. After completing his training, he finally found a new crew to join the Blades of Lightning. He figures it's only natural to dream about all of that. Lost understands he wouldn't be where he is today without that girl's words back then. Had he given up on being an adventurer, he would never have crossed paths with her again. As he drifts in thought, Narcina knocks on his door, inviting him to breakfast. He agrees, and they set off to eat. The scene shifts to them in the labyrinth. Lost mentions they're heading down to the lower levels today. Shortly after, they find themselves on a labyrinth floor featuring a teleportation circle. Narcina beams, excitedly stating she's never encountered one before. Lost clarifies that not every labyrinth contains these circles, explaining that a magician placed this one after its discovery, though he knows little else. Narcina gets pumped, believing they can teleport anywhere, but Lost corrects her. He explains they can only jump to another teleportation circle. They'll need one on the other side to exit. Narcina sighs, wishing they had a circle back in the city. But then she speculates that perhaps they didn't place one there to prevent monsters from overrunning the city. Lost informs her that's not the problem. Monsters can't use these circles, but the knowledge to create them was lost centuries ago, so no new ones can be made. They step into the teleportation circle and leap to the middle levels. Lost cautions Narcina that the monsters here are tougher than those they faced earlier, so she must remain alert. The scene transitions to their battle. Lost manages his share of foes, but when Narcina attempts to strike one, her punch goes right through it. Lost explains it's a lick, a creature composed entirely of spirit energy. Physical attacks are useless against it. Narcina realizes this makes sense since she can see right through its form. Lost suggests they retreat because without magic, they're at a disadvantage. But Narcina insists she can take down the lick, and Lost immediately understands her plan. He distracts the lick while Narcina conceals herself, preparing for her strike. As Lost runs, he explains that with sufficient training, individuals can learn to harness their prana, the spirit energy within them. With it, they can combat spiritual entities, even ones like the lick. Meanwhile, Narcina channels her prana into her fist and delivers a powerful punch, defeating the lick. She feels triumphant about the victory, but Lost notices she's injured. Examining her wound, he deduces she sustained it during the lick's attack. He retrieves an item and casts a healing spell on her, explaining that it's a magical item that enhances healing spells. He mentions that the item contains a magical stone. The guild gathers these magical stones from adventurers, then gives them to craftsmen who create magical items to return to the adventurers. Once Narcina is healed, she inquires about the potential selling price of the magic stone. Lost believes it could fetch a decent amount. They sell the stone to Amherst, who pays them. On their return to the inn, Lost is astonished by the amount they earned from the stone. As they stroll through the town, they notice a heated argument taking place. They approach to get a better view and find two adventurers ready to brawl. Lost informs Narcina that such incidents have been increasingly common lately. He elaborates that adventurers causing trouble elsewhere have been flocking to this town. Narcina recalls Amherst mentioning something similar, spotting rough-looking adventurers everywhere. Lost thinks it's a real nuisance for serious adventurers, clearly frustrated, but suggests they treat themselves to a nice meal since they just got paid. The scene shifts to them relishing some exquisite food at the inn. The innkeeper expresses concern about whether Lost can cover the bill. He reassures her not to worry and orders some ale. Seeing this, Narcina attempts to order ale as well, but is denied due to her age. She feels irritated, disliking being treated like a child. After their meal, Narcina asks Lost about a peculiar tower on the town's outskirts. She has seen similar structures everywhere, but can't figure out their purpose. Lost admits it's odd. He once got curious and asked the workers constructing the towers, but they had no clue who hired them or why. Narcina is taken aback by this. Lost explains that the builder only interacted with an agent who had the blueprints and funds, but that agent was working for another agent, and so on. There was a whole chain of intermediaries between the builder and the actual owner. Narcina concludes that whoever commissioned these towers wanted to remain anonymous. Lost shrugs, saying it doesn't matter as long as no one gets hurt, pointing out that there are plenty of odd characters around, but he thinks they should build a wall instead of these towers. Narcina reflects and realizes the city lacks a wall. She mentions she actually likes the city's appearance without one, but Lost counters that it could pose a problem in case of war. He asks her how they would prevent outsiders from invading. Narcina confidently replies that walls aren't necessary with so many adventurers in the city. She believes they'll manage whatever challenges arise. Lost concedes she has a valid point, and they head back to their rooms. Just as Lost is about to enter his room, Narcina halts him as if she wants to say something. She hesitates, ultimately wishing him good night. Later, lying in bed, Narcina's mind wanders to the desire to be in the same room as Lost, but she can't bring herself to voice it. Meanwhile, Lost lies in bed, appreciating being part of a party again. He's uncertain if he'll ever encounter that little girl from his past, but thanks to Narcina, he knows he can keep adventuring a bit longer. The scene transitions to Margulis, the leader of the Blades of Lightning, introducing a new healer named Lyra to the group. The rest of the team doesn't exactly welcome her warmly, which unsettles her. Margulis is confident this new team can defeat the Hydra, and the scene shifts to a dark, ominous location. Handsome reports to someone stating that the sleeping princess is in this city, posing as an adventurer alongside Lost. The old man he's speaking to is astonished that Lost is still around. He insists they need to eliminate Lost quickly, and Handsome agrees they're running out of time. The crew returns to the swamp to confront the Hydra, fortunate that it hasn't regrown its heads yet. This means less work for them. Margulis quickly devises a battle strategy, stating he and Lyra will attack from the front. Armia will provide magical support, while Sabria will sneak up from behind. Margulis is about to charge in when Lyra raises her hands, calling for a timeout. She's a healer, not a fighter, and there's no way she's going to the front lines. Margulis looks at her as if she's speaking a foreign language. Lost used to fight alongside them all the time. Lyra is stunned, asking how they made their previous healer fight on the front lines. But Sabria recalls that Lost never seemed to mind. In fact, Sabria adds, Lost landed some impressive hits and even severed one of the Hydra's heads. Lyra's not expecting Margulis to anticipate her pulling off moves like that. If she claims she can't fight up front, he's totally fine with that. However, he checks if she can use the detoxify spell for the Hydra's poison, and she's good to go. Margulis shouts for everyone to get ready. Today, they're taking down the Hydra. Meanwhile, back in town, Lost and Narcina return from their latest labyrinth adventure, and Amherst is thrilled they've brought more gems to sell. Yet, she warns Lost not to push Narcina too hard since she's still a newbie. Lost assures her he's keeping an eye on Narcina, making sure their battles stay manageable. Amherst appreciates their cautious approach, but reminds him that two people can only handle so much. She suggests that Lost and Narcina consider adding more members to their party to ease the burden. Lost agrees that having extra hands would simplify things. Ultimately, he decides it's not worth the hassle. He and Narcina are already making decent money as it is. Amherst can't dispute that. With their earnings, they could even rent a house instead of staying at the inn. Narcina is surprised to learn you can actually rent a house in the city. So Amherst explains that there's only so much you can store at an inn. But with a private room, there's significantly more space, though it comes at a cost. The real excitement kicks in when you have both guys and girls around. And with that added privacy, it opens the door for some late-night fun. Suddenly, Narcina is all in on the idea of renting a private place. Lost, however, isn't really feeling it. Amherst doubts any late-night escapades will happen this time. Speaking of private spots, Lost recalls that Lightning Blade had one too. But they had him stuck in a storage closet, so it wasn't exactly a luxurious experience. Amherst laughs at how poorly they treated Lost. To lift his spirits, she tells him he might have dodged a bullet by getting kicked out of Lightning Blade. Since he left, Margulis and the others haven't completed a single mission. Margulis is scratching his head, trying to figure out the reason. But Lyra sees it clearly. Dudes are too slow to realize he can't take on a Hydra alone. Margulis hears her and is about to explode. But Lyra cuts him off, telling him to relax. She needs to concentrate on helping Armia recover. Armia was seriously injured and poisoned, so Lyra has to stay focused. While she does that, Sabri tells Margulis that, as much as she hates to admit it, Lost might have been more valuable than they thought. Lost wasn't the greatest healer, but he still managed to pull his weight. Plus, he didn't even realize they were taking advantage of him for his money. So he was the ideal team player. Now Margulis regrets losing him. But Sabri reminds him that he was the one who kicked Lost out in the first place and made a huge scene about it. Margulis had completely forgotten that. Now that it's back in his mind, he thinks getting Lost back will be easy. All they need to do is ask, and Margulis is confident Lost will come running back, because who would turn down a spot with the famous lightning blades? They are the best, but Sabri is starting to question if she even wants to stick around. By the next morning, Lyra finally finishes healing Armia. Armia wakes up, thanks her for saving her, and Lyra's just glad she could help. She asks Armia if she's up for some food, and since Armia agrees, Lyra heads downstairs to get her something to eat. When Lyra goes downstairs to find out where the food is, she notices Sabri and Margulis are missing. She has no idea where they disappeared to. Meanwhile, Margulis and Sabri are at the guild, and Margulis, as loud as ever, announces he's ready to let Lost back into the team. Everyone freezes, staring at him like he's lost his mind, and Lost is the most shocked of all. He can't believe what he's hearing, so he asks Margulis to repeat it. There's no way someone could be this oblivious. Margulis repeats it, word for word, and yes, Lost heard him correctly, but Lost is still sitting there, unsure how to respond to something so ridiculous. Narcina and Amherst notice the commotion, and Amherst fills her in. The blonde guy running his mouth is the same one who kicked Lost out, and now he's trying to get him back, acting like he's doing Lost a huge favor. Lost isn't swayed by the speech. Before he can respond, Margulis jumps to conclusions, thinking Lost is upset about being cheated out of his pay while part of the crew. Margulis quickly offers an apology, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, and assures Lost he'll get a fair share this time. He even concedes they could really use his assistance since the new healer he hired isn't pulling her weight during battles. Sabri can't believe Lost would ever agree to Margulis's ridiculousness. To her astonishment, Lost actually expresses gratitude for the offer. Narcina is having none of it. She won't let Margulis swoop in and take Lost away. She rushes forward, shouting that Lost is never returning to Margulis's group. Lost places a hand on Narcina's shoulder, soothing her, assuring her he isn't going anywhere. He then turns to Margulis, stating that his thanks were merely polite, but he has no desire to rejoin that crew. Margulis can't fathom the rejection, growing desperate, accusing Narcina of using Lost because she knows how valuable he is. Lost's patience is wearing thin as Margulis continues to point fingers. Lost grabs Margulis's hand, locking eyes with him. He warns Margulis that if he ever harms Narcina, Lost will ensure his body is left unrecognizable. With that, Lost turns to leave, and Narcina takes a moment to deliver a final jab at Margulis before they exit. After Lost and Narcina depart, Margulis feels lost, yet he's still determined to take down the Hydra. Frustrated, he barks at Amherst to find him a new adventurer, ideally someone who can hold their own in battle. Amherst is reluctant to deal with him, but before she can reply, a man steps out from the crowd. This guy looks like he's already completed all the side quests and rolled in with maxed out stats. The mysterious man offers to join the crew, questioning if Margulis thinks he measures up. Margulis sizes him up. The guy looks tough, but Margulis isn't about to take any risks. He draws his sword and charges to test the man's skills, but with one fluid motion, the stranger disarms Margulis, making him look foolish in front of everyone. After shaking off the embarrassment, Margulis welcomes the man into the party. Sabria, however, is wary of anyone who wears a mask constantly, but Margulis dismisses her concerns, stating they have no other choice. If they fail to defeat that Hydra, the Lightning Blade's reputation will plummet. Margulis approaches the man and inquires about his name. The man simply replies, Shig. Meanwhile, back at the inn, Narcina is checking her reflection when she hears a knock on Lost's door. Curious, she walks over to see who it is and finds Sheila waiting. Initially, she suspects Sheila might be up to something with Lost, but after a moment's thought, she realizes that doesn't add up. Lost finally opens the door and Sheila informs him that he has visitors waiting for him downstairs. Surprised, Lost decides to go see what's happening. Once downstairs, Lost and Narcina reunite with Armia and Lyra. Armia feels guilty for dropping this on him so abruptly, but she asks if Lost could assist them just this once. Margulis is still intent on taking down the Hydra and has even recruited a new warrior to support him. However, Lyra doubts they can win without Lost's involvement. For starters, Margulis is too stubborn to buy an antidote potion because he's too cheap. He won't realize how reckless he's being until someone ends up dead due to his obstinacy. Armia knows it's too late for an apology, but she acknowledges that Lost's strength saved them last time. If he hadn't severed that Hydra's head in their last encounter, the entire team would have been wiped out. Lost believes he didn't do much, but Lyra reminds him how hard the party struggled against a Hydra that had already lost 2 heads. If that creature had been at full power, they would have been toast. Lost directly asks Armia what she wants him to do. Armia stands up, stating she wants Lost to fight alongside them once more. She believes they have a genuine chance at defeating the Hydra if he's present. Essentially, she's asking him to rejoin Lightning Blade, but Lost has already dealt with this mess with Margulis, and his answer remains unchanged. Narcina is puzzled by Armia's eagerness to assist Margulis, considering how difficult this must be for her. Armia concedes that yes, Margulis has many flaws, but ultimately, he's still her teammate. Narcina is furious upon hearing that, as Lost was her teammate too, yet Armia did nothing to support him when he was mistreated. Armia breaks down in tears, apologizing to Lost. She explains that back then, she was too frightened to confront Margulis. Worried about being ousted from the team, she's new to adventuring and lacks other groups to join. Now she realizes how mistaken she was, and how poorly Margulis treated Lost. Though she disagrees with Margulis's methods, she can't bear the thought of him dying in a battle they can't win. Lyra intervenes, assuring Lost that Armia genuinely regrets her actions. Lost stands tall, meets Armia's gaze, and tells her he bears no ill will. He accepts her apology, but makes it clear he won't return to the lightning blade. Armia feels a bit disheartened, but respects Lost's choice, promising not to pester him about it again. Moments later, Mary approaches with a feast, trying to boost Armia's mood since it's obvious she hasn't been eating well. As Armia digs in, Lost pulls Lyra aside, asking if there's a chance she could take Armia and leave Margulis's group. Lyra quickly clarifies that if she could have done that, she wouldn't have sought help in the first place. Lost understands Margulis's treatment of others, so he bluntly suggests that Lyra should leave his party as well. Lyra quickly dismisses that idea, insisting she can't leave Armia to face Margulis alone. The following day, Margulis finally introduces Lyra to Shig, as they prepare to confront the Hydra once more. Upon seeing him, Lyra feels a sense of familiarity, so she pulls him aside to ask why he's here and why he's concealing his identity. Shig feigns ignorance, acting as if they've never met before. As he turns to leave, Lyra notices the sword strapped to his back. It once belonged to someone named Ronaldo, and she accuses Shig outright of theft. Shig denies being a thief, claiming the sword was a gift passed down to him. While he may have cleared himself of theft, acknowledging he knew Ronaldo confirms to Lyra that he is indeed the Shig she once knew. Lyra decides to keep his secret safe. It must hold significance for him. Later that day, Lost and Narcina venture into the labyrinth as usual. Yet, Lost can't shake his concern for Armia and the rest of Lightning Blade. He questions whether they are truly prepared for what lies ahead. The scene shifts to Narcina battling monsters in the labyrinth, dispatching them effortlessly, even when one attempts a sneak attack. Lost observes and compliments her, but she brushes it off, claiming it's nothing and that she can continue. However, her stomach growls loudly enough for him to hear. Lost grins, joking that perhaps her stomach has reached its limit, even if she hasn't. Embarrassed, she snaps at him, but he laughs and suggests they take a break for lunch. She agrees. Soon they're enjoying the packed lunch, and Lost is surprised by the amount of food, asking if there's a special occasion. Narcina explains that Mary, the innkeeper, gave her all this before she left, saying she'd need to finish it since their little friend couldn't. Then Lost begins to explain about hydras. He describes it as a formidable beast, with venom and scales tough enough to deflect attacks effortlessly. Standard physical and magical strikes barely make a dent. Narcina is taken aback by its strength and hopes Armia will be all right. Lost reassures her that hydras are common among higher-level monsters, and people have learned how to deal with them. He adds that hydra venom is lethal, but there's a specific antidote to counteract it. Narcina recalls Lyra mentioning they didn't purchase that antidote, and Lost explains it's quite pricey, so they're depending on Lyra's detox magic instead. Narcina remains anxious, but Lost insists there's no need for concern. Lightning Sword is in a rough spot. Margulis may be silly, but he knows his swordplay, as long as he doesn't underestimate his foes. And Siberia's agility is off the charts. She could even sneak up on a Hydra. Whether they have wide vision or not, Narcina isn't thrilled about his high opinion of them, but he insists he's just being truthful. She remains worried. Afterward, they continue their quest, and Narcina expresses her fatigue with the same labyrinth. She wonders if they can explore the wetlands today. And though Lost is slightly taken aback, he agrees. We shift to Margulis and his team confronting a Hydra. Margulis manages to injure one of its heads, while Shig lands a hit on another. Margulis shouts at him to sever it, but Shig suddenly halts mid-swing and retreats. Margulis demands to know why he hesitated, and Shig claims this was meant to be his glory, asking if Margulis is okay with him taking all the credit. Margulis is confused at first, so Shig clarifies. The title of Hydra Slayer would look great on you. Margulis, not the sharpest tool, bites the bait and charges in, but his attack barely affects the creature. Meanwhile, Lyra finishes processing Siberia. She leaps back into the fray to distract the Hydra, providing Margulis with an opportunity to strike. Armia channels her magic to support everyone, and Lyra believes victory is within reach if they maintain this momentum. Then she spots Shig taking a breather and ponders what schemes he might be concocting. Out of nowhere, the Hydra swings its tail, hurling a rock that knocks Armia down. The Hydra advances toward her, and Armia faints from sheer terror. As she lies unconscious, dark smoke begins to seep from her, prompting Siberia to question what's happening. Shig explains it's her fear, revealing that monsters can actually consume human fear to gain power. He adds that this kind of fear typically remains invisible to human perception. At that moment, the Hydra starts absorbing fear from everything in its vicinity. Lyra realizes the fear is transforming into mana, and Siberia questions whether mana should even manifest here. Lyra clarifies that it usually doesn't appear, as mana is typically found only in the labyrinth's deepest areas. After it absorbs the mana, the Hydra begins to radiate light, and Lyra understands it's undergoing a mutation. She informs everyone that monsters can alter their forms by harnessing vast amounts of magical energy, sometimes enhancing their abilities dramatically. The Hydra morphs into a significantly stronger entity and seeks shouts for Lyra to assist Armia. She agrees, while Lost instructs Margulis to retreat. But Margulis refuses, insisting they've invested too much effort to back down. He attempts to sever one of the Hydra's heads, but his sword shatters upon impact, nearly resulting in a hit on him. Lost leaps in just in time to rescue him. Now, Narcina, Lost, and Shig unite to strike the Hydra, managing to inflict minor damage. Shig then urges Lost to check on Armia, leaving the Hydra to him. Lost agrees and inquires about Armia's state. It turns out she's in critical condition, and Lyra explains her healing magic is ineffective due to Armia's resistance as a wizard. Consequently, Lost begins layering multiple healing spells on her. Lyra observes, puzzled, questioning his method. Sabria clarifies that he's stacking healing spells, which is his usual approach. Lyra is astonished that such a technique works, likening it to chugging potions, which doesn't cure a cold instantly. She insists it shouldn't be feasible. Margulis, clueless, admits he has no idea what a cold feels like, proving that, as they say, fools don't catch colds. Lyra remains impressed by the layered healing, and eventually Armia stirs awake after Lost finishes. She sees him, expresses her gratitude, and promptly falls back asleep. Suddenly, the Hydra seems intent on targeting Lost specifically, and Shig picks up on this. Lost wonders if the Hydra remembers him, and Narcina offers her assistance. Knowing she won't back down even if he declines, Lost agrees, but warns her to retreat if things turn dire. Shig then cautions Lyra, Margulis, and Sabria to maintain their distance from the creature, and they all concur. Lost and Narcina launch their assault, while Shig successfully decapitates one of the Hydra's heads. Margulis, taken aback, wonders why Shig's sword didn't break like his. Lyra explains that Shig wields a magical sword. Margulis, astonished, realizes these magical swords are legendary artifacts known for their immense power. He can't fathom that Shig possesses one and questions who he truly is. Narcina charges at the Hydra, but she slips, and the creature sends her soaring into the air. She crashes down, knocked unconscious. Lost realizes the Hydra aims to confront him alone, using Narcina as leverage to prevent interference. Sabria is stunned, questioning how a monster could possess such intelligence. Lyra explains that mutated monsters can sometimes exhibit heightened intelligence. Lost instructs everyone to stay back while he confronts the Hydra directly, but after a fierce battle, he finds himself defeated, struggling to rise. Lyra yells at him to keep fighting, and he reaches for his weapon but then loses consciousness. Suddenly, something shifts within him. He stands up, enveloped in a powerful blue aura, leaving the others in shock, trying to comprehend the situation. Out of nowhere, Lost sprouts a horn and begins slicing through the Hydra effortlessly. After he defeats it, he collapses. The scene shifts to him waking up to Narcina calling his name. He feels relieved to see she's safe, and she informs him that Lyra had prepared an antidote. So she's all right now. Lyra mentions it wasn't inexpensive and that she'll bill them later. Lost glances over and sees Armia still asleep. He's relieved to learn she's out of danger. Lyra then questions him about that unusual form he exhibited earlier, but Lost is clueless about what she means. Before he can ponder it further, Margulis interjects, stating Lost is incredibly strong, and with him around, even the fiercest monsters won't stand a chance. Margulis suggests that with Lost's assistance, they might actually defeat Garlock the Destroyer. Lost attempts to remind him of his refusal to join their group, but Margulis dismisses it, claiming they can share the Hydra's magic stones. Margulis concludes that since the newcomers did nothing, they deserve nothing, and for Narcina, merely being Lost's sidekick means he should find a way to keep her satisfied. Lost mentions Armia's predicament, and Siberia bluntly states she's no longer of any use. There's a possibility she may never regain consciousness, and Margulis suggests selling her to a noble with questionable interests. Lost's anger flares, but before he can respond, Narcina delivers a solid punch to Margulis. He's taken aback, unable to process what just occurred. He quickly reminds her that the guild prohibits adventurers from fighting one another, warning her that she risks expulsion for breaking the rules. Turning to the others, he seeks witnesses, but they all pretend they saw nothing. Siberia steps forward, claiming she witnessed everything and will report it to the guild. Then Shig adds that he overheard someone planning to sell Armia to a creepy noble before she wakes. He points out that trafficking is a serious offense, so they need to take Margulis and Siberia into custody. Margulis is taken aback, questioning Shig's true identity. The scene shifts to the guild, revealing Shig is actually Zeg, an elite adventurer from the Royal Cities Guild. We see him binding Margulis and Siberia while explaining the situation. Zeg drops his alias, stating Shig was merely a cover, and Lyra teases him about his weak disguise. Amherst, the guild receptionist, then inquires why someone from the capital would be in their small town. Zeg reminds her that elite adventurers have the authority to oversee and regulate their peers. He elaborates that he came to investigate due to the town's recent troubles, and almost immediately, he stumbled upon Margulis's dubious dealings. Lyra asks what fate awaits Margulis and Siberia now. Amherst replies that they will definitely be expelled from the guild and could face lifetime labor for human trafficking. Margulis attempts to justify himself, claiming it was merely talk and they never acted on it. But Amherst counters that the law is clear, and the two begin blaming each other for their predicament. Later, Lost pulls Zeg aside, pleading for mercy for Margulis and Siberia. Zeg, surprised, asks why he would want that. Lost explains they didn't start off this way, they once aspired to be good adventurers. But somewhere along the way, they lost their way, chasing fame and fortune. Lost believes they never intended for things to escalate this far, and hopes Zeg will grant them another chance. From their holding cell, Margulis and Siberia begin to feel regret creeping in. Zeg decides to honor Lost's request, telling Margulis and Siberia they are free to leave. He warns them to leave town and hopes they won't encounter him again. They quickly depart. Amherst worries about the situation, but Zeg reassures her that expulsion from the guild might not be the worst outcome. It's better they remain adventurous and keep an eye on them. Amherst isn't convinced this will actually help, noting that Marmot is a small town where things operate differently than in the capital. Zeg decides to stick around for a while to see how events unfold, and Amherst is pleased to hear it. Later at the inn, Zeg speaks with Lyra, explaining his reasons for staying. He wants to monitor the adventurers in this town. He mentions that the guild in the royal city suspects the strange mutations here might be connected to the Marmot division, asking if she can assist him in investigating. Lyra agrees but insists that Armia must join them as well. Zeg is curious about her insistence, and she explains she can't just abandon her. Zeg nods, agreeing to let Armia accompany them. Having more members is logical since he needs to keep an eye on even more individuals now, and he knows he can't leave Lost unsupervised. Afterward, Zeg and his team sit down with Lost and Narcina for brunch. Lost is astonished to learn they formed a team with just 3 members and asks Armia if she's truly okay with joining them. She shyly replies that she has nowhere else to go, and Zeg and Lyra saved her life, so she owes them a lot. Lost and Zeg remind her that she shouldn't feel guilty about it, but she's stuck with them regardless, and Lost is happy to hear that. After that, Narcina and Lost head to the guild early in the morning since they forgot to redeem the Hydra's magic stone last night. Lost has another motive, contemplating Narcina's future. He advises her to take on a specific quest today, as merely hunting monsters won't advance her as an adventurer. He clarifies that quests can vary widely, slaying beasts, collecting rare items, or escorting wealthy clients willing to pay handsomely. Narcina feels a warmth in her heart, grateful that Lost is considering her feelings. When he inquires if something's bothering her, she turns red with embarrassment. They soon arrive at the guild, where suspicious glances are thrown their way. Word has spread about Lost defeating the Hydra, and disbelief runs rampant. He swiftly pulls Narcina aside, cautioning her to remain alert. There are plenty of unsavory characters around. Lost is the type who would eagerly snatch those Hydra stones if given the chance. Just as he finishes, an adventurer named Marnell approaches, claiming he has something to discuss with Lost. Lost remains wary, asking if they must talk now, which leads Marnell to assume he's anxious about his companions, prompting him to send them away. Lost and Narcina are uncertain about Marnell's intentions, but they sense he isn't after the Hydra stones. Marnell looks at Lost and unexpectedly apologizes, catching him off guard. Lost is baffled by the sudden apology, and Marnell explains he's sorry for Margulis's actions. He confesses that the entire town knew Margulis was trouble, yet no one warned Lost. Marnell admits he thought it wasn't his place to intervene and didn't want to provoke Margulis. He expresses regret for not stepping up when Lost needed support and for allowing others to mock him for his incompetence. Suddenly, Narcina interjects, stating that forgiveness won't come easily. Marnell, slightly anxious, asks her what he must do to earn Lost's forgiveness. She suggests he should kneel before Lost for 3 consecutive days, apologizing each day. Marnell and the other adventurers are taken aback by the harsh punishment this blue-haired girl proposes, but Lost intervenes, not wanting to be hated. He states he's not keen on revisiting the past and acknowledges that despite defeating the Hydra, he still has much to learn as a healer. Offering his hand to Marnell, he proposes they work on building a better relationship moving forward. Marnell shakes his hand enthusiastically, telling Lost to call on him if he ever needs help before returning to his group. Afterward, Lost and Narcina approach the reception desk to submit the Hydra's magic stone. Amherst nearly drools at the sight of it. It's enough to make them millionaires. She notes that the Hydra was already a formidable beast, and with its mutation, the stone's value skyrocketed, but she cautions that this mutation suggests a looming disaster. Narcina is puzzled by the serious expressions on Amherst and Lost's faces as they discuss the mutation, prompting them to explain. Monsters require vast amounts of mana to mutate, which typically occurs only in the deeper levels of dungeons. If it mutated on the surface, it indicates something unnatural is triggering a mana surge above ground. Amherst mentions that other adventurers have reported similar occurrences, suggesting that things could become perilous. Narcina questions why the guild hasn't taken action, like dispatching a team to investigate. At that moment, Amherst's boss, Handsome She, tenses upon hearing this and quickly informs him that the adventurers have a proposal. Handsome agrees to listen to them directly and invites them to his office, where he reviews the report on the Hydra's mutation and the emergence of high-level monsters on the upper dungeon floors. Handsome shrugs it off, claiming incidents like this have occurred before, so it's not particularly unusual. He adds that the guild lacks the time and resources to send out an investigation team every time something odd arises. Lost attempts to press him, asserting that the guild's duty is to protect its adventurers. But Handsome retorts, stating that adventurers are aware of the risks they take when signing up. He even tells Lost that if he's so afraid of monsters, he should just leave town. As they exit the office, Narcina is seething, unleashing all the frustration she bottled up during those 5 minutes with Handsome. She snaps, demanding to know who he thinks he is, telling Lost to leave. Amherst explains that he's the top authority here, at least for the time being. The guild leader is elderly and rarely leaves his room, while Handsome, as his right-hand man, is the one truly in charge. Lost shifts the topic, asking Amherst to line up some quests for Narcina. She presents the available jobs, and Narcina grumbles that most of these don't even seem like real work. Amherst flicks her forehead, reminding her that as long as it generates income, she shouldn't be choosy about the job type. Lost spots a quest to hunt a phoenix near the teleportation circles in the dungeon. Narcina eagerly exclaims that they'll take it. Amherst cautions her to wait, pointing out that with just a healer and a martial artist, they stand little chance against a creature that can fly. Immediately, Lost and Narcina consider teaming up with Zeg's crew, heading straight to their base. Zeg and Lyra are on board, but Army hesitates, thinking Lost might not want to work with her. After everything that happened, Lost reassures her that she's already been forgiven, so there's no need to worry. With everyone aligned, Zeg heads to the guild to handle the necessary paperwork. While the others shop for supplies, Lost informs Narcina they need potions to treat burns from battling the Phoenix. She's impressed, acknowledging his expertise, but it also makes her feel somewhat inferior. Lost in thought, she zones out in the street when suddenly a girl sneaks up and grabs her. Narcina breaks free and throws a punch at the redhead, but the woman effortlessly dodges. Narcina is taken aback when she realizes the playful assailant is Ralma, a seasoned adventurer and an old friend of her father. Connecting the dots, she figures her dad sent Ralma to keep an eye on her, concerned about her wandering off. Just then, Lost arrives, and both he and Ralma look shocked to see each other. They share a long history. Lost greets her with respect, calling her master, leaving Narcina utterly bewildered. They head to a nearby eatery, where Lost reveals he trained under Ralma for a while. Narcina mentions her dad and Ralma are friends, explaining her father sent Ralma to check on her. Ralma then tells Lost to give her and Narcina some privacy for a personal conversation. Lost stands firm, insisting he's part of Narcina's party and deserves to know what's happening. He suspects Ralma might try to forcibly take Narcina back, and he won't allow that. Ralma smirks, seeing it as a challenge, and questions if he really believes he can stop her. She shoots a small flame at him, but he dodges just in time. Ralma is impressed by Lost's growth and agrees to let him stay. She turns to Narcina asking why she left home. Narcina insists she didn't run away. She left in a hurry and couldn't say a proper goodbye, but she left a note about finding Lost. Both Lost and Ralma are taken aback, and Ralma presses on, asking why she sought him out. Narcina falls silent, hiding her face, too embarrassed to confess she had her dad's men spy on Lost. When she learned he was kicked from his party, she rushed out to support him. Lost advises Narcina to return home and reconcile with her father, but she fears he won't allow her to be with Lost. Holding back tears, Ralma intervenes, assuring her that her dad isn't against her adventuring. He just worried about her leaving without a word. Ralma promises to speak with her father, ensuring he knows she's safe with Lost. Then Ralma sends Lost to fetch drinks and starts nudging Narcina about what's really happening between her and Lost. Narcina begins to rave about how incredible Lost is, but then tears well up, feeling like a burden to him. Ralma reassures her, stating she's definitely made a significant impact. Lost wouldn't have dared to confront her before, but now he's stronger and more self-assured. Ralma tells Narcina she's had a genuine positive influence on him and encourages her to keep spending time with him. Later that night, Ralma stands outside the guild pondering what the former guild leader might be plotting. The following morning, everyone gears up to confront the Phoenix. Sheila hands Lost some food, expressing her concern and urging him to be cautious. Suddenly, Narcina appears, snatching the lunch bag from Lost, assuring Sheila she'll be by his side, which only heightens Sheila's worry. Then they depart the town. The scene shifts to Lost and the others arriving on the middle levels of the labyrinth. Narcina is eager to face the Phoenix, but the creature is nowhere to be found. She expected it to charge at them as soon as they entered, but Lost explains the space is too cramped for the Phoenix to act. Narcina starts to ponder the size, and Lost clarifies that phoenixes vary in size, but none could fit through this narrow passage. They continue onward, and Zeg notes that flying creatures typically don't thrive in tight spaces. If given the choice, they'd prefer an open area with plenty of space above. Soon, they stumble into a vast open area, and Lyra is convinced the Phoenix is nearby. She points out this is a newly discovered path, barely explored, which has adventurers speculating about hidden treasures, but the Phoenix blocks their way. Consequently, some adventurers have posted a job to eliminate it. Lost notices scorch marks on the nearby pillars, deducing the Phoenix must be close. He tosses a rock ahead, hoping to draw the Phoenix out, knowing it's a territorial beast. Sure enough, the Phoenix emerges from a portal above, sweeping through the room in an instant. The scene shifts to the Adventurers Guild. Ralma enters, catching Amherst's attention, who greets her with all the charm she can muster. Ralma observes that this guild feels inviting to adventurers, and Amherst agrees, stating they exist solely because of them. However, Amherst is laying it on thick, knowing Ralma is a top-tier adventurer. She notes that even though Ralma's outfit isn't flashy, the fabric is high quality, and each piece of jewelry she wears is actually a valuable magic item. Amherst is determined to keep Ralma close, aware that she's a significant player in the adventuring scene. Amherst inquires what Ralma needs, and she bluntly states her desire to meet the branch president. Amherst asks again, finding the request strange, but Ralma insists she wants to see Mist. Amherst checks if Ralma has any referral or appointment to back her request. Ralma has neither. Amherst suspects she must know Mist personally. Ralma denies knowing him, but she has some business with him. By business, she means she wants him dead. Amherst immediately refuses her entry, thinking Ralma's lost it. Seeing her polite approach isn't working, Ralma decides to escalate. She begins to conjure a fireball, but before she can unleash it, Handsome intervenes. He addresses her by name, and Amherst realizes she's up against the Flame Fool. Handsome warns Amherst that if Ralma is serious, she could incinerate the entire building. Ralma feels relieved that someone with authority has finally arrived. Meanwhile, in the labyrinth, the phoenix continues to soar, making Narcina doubt her punches, and Lost Sword will be effective. Lost suggests it might have been wise to bring a ball, but Narcina isn't too concerned since the phoenix isn't attacking directly. Suddenly, the phoenix launches a fireball at Narcina, and Lost yanks her out of harm's way just in time. He cautions her that the fireball is the phoenix's deadliest move, and Narcina thinks it's quite unfair. Back at the guild, Handsome asks Ralma if she's there regarding the same issue as an adventurer from the previous day. He explains that an adventurer visited yesterday, claiming something happened in the labyrinth and wanted them to take care of it. Ralma asks what he told the adventurer, and Handsome replies he advised him to leave town if he was too scared to enter the labyrinth. Ralma clarifies her situation is different, noting it's been a while since she visited Marmot, but it seems overrun with thugs now. Handsome agrees they're worried too, but Ralma suspects they're behind it and questions why they allowed it to escalate. She can't fathom their reasoning, but she's convinced they're scheming. She points out the new pillars scattered throughout the town, curious about their purpose. Handsome admits he has no idea and insists it has nothing to do with the guild. Ralma doubts his sincerity, thinking he's feigning ignorance. He asks if she has evidence linking the pillars to the guild, but she says it's just a hunch. Handsome chuckles, calling her theory a stretch. Ralma argues that in a labyrinth city, the Adventurers Guild wields absolute power, and the branch president is like the city's ruler, yet he acts oblivious, which unsettles her. Handsome reminds her he's merely the president's right-hand man, but she knows he's just putting on an act. He tells her if she has issues with the way things are managed, she should leave. Ralma is convinced something's off, noticing that whenever an adventurer raises questions, they're told to leave. She suspects they're trying to prevent people from sticking around, and Handsome asks what she believes their motive is. Ralma theorizes something massive is about to unfold, something that might require a lot of disposable adventurers. She's fairly certain it will resemble a labyrinth rampage, where casualties won't raise any alarms. The scene shifts back to the labyrinth, where the phoenix is wreaking havoc, unleashing flames everywhere. Zeg realizes the room is becoming a furnace, and this won't end well. Lyra observes that managing the heat will be challenging, but the real issue is the air. Fires consuming all the oxygen, and they won't last much longer. Lost realizes the phoenix is trying to drive them out to protect its territory, and Narcina comments that monsters are supposed to attack humans on sight, not scare them away. Lost insists the phoenix needs to understand it can't take on all 5 of them by itself. Sure, monsters might not be the brightest, but this one has to rely on its instincts. Zeg declares they have no choice but to fight now and asks Armia if she can use some water magic. She confirms she can, so he instructs her to target the phoenix's wings. He explains that the flames on its wings are like feathers, so if they can extinguish them with water, it will bring the creature down, allowing him to finish it off with his sword. Armia hesitates, concerned it will take time to prepare her spell, but Zeg reassures her, promising to protect her until she's ready. Narcina jumps in, vowing to help keep her safe too, which boosts Armia's confidence. With their encouragement, she decides to go for it. Zeg, Lost, and Narcina then move in to distract the phoenix while Armia begins her incantation. Lyra watches, knowing this is a significant moment for Armia, especially with her past holding her back. She hopes Armia can muster the strength to trust her teammates, believing that if she does, she'll become a capable adventurer. Armia finally releases a small water arrow at the beast. It works. The phoenix is pulled lower, and Zeg strikes, but the blow isn't deep enough. The creature rises once more, but Lost feels they might actually have a chance if they maintain their momentum. At the guild, Hansen contemplates the chaos in the labyrinth, thinking it sounds dire, yet he isn't overly concerned since it's not a common occurrence. Relma suggests this could clarify many of the strange happenings in town recently. She expresses particular worry about the monster mutations, noting the mana levels around the labyrinth are off the charts. Inside the labyrinth, the phoenix is evolving, its flames transitioning from orange to a striking blue as it grows. Narcina remarks that mutations are meant to be uncommon, and Lost agrees, pointing out it's unusual to encounter them twice in just a few days. Armia is unnerved by the mutated creatures, questioning why they keep appearing near her, while Lyra attempts to calm her down, but Armia is too far gone. Lyra fears the situation could escalate. If Armia succumbs to her fear again, it will only empower the monster. She understands Armia must overcome her fear now, or she'll lose her opportunity to grow, but Lyra is at a loss for how to assist. Suddenly, the Phoenix lunges at Armia, and Lyra shouts for her to evade, but Armia stands frozen. The Phoenix unleashes a fireball, but Zeg intercepts it, saving her in the nick of time. The Phoenix continues to launch fireballs, and Zeg slices through each one, urging Armia to join them in taking it down. Lyra reaches out, and finally, Armia steps forward to engage in the battle. She requests a moment to prepare, and they give her the space she needs. Meanwhile, Ralmaz has exited the guild, surprised by their upfront approach. She approaches the stone pillars surrounding the city, using her fire magic on them, realizing these stones hold more significance than she thought. Back in the labyrinth, Narcina lands a punch on the Phoenix, but it hardly affects it, and her hand ignites. She manages to extinguish the flames just as the Phoenix strikes, but Lost intervenes, only to find his sword beginning to melt. Armia prepares to cast another offensive spell, and Lyra aids her by restoring her stamina, knowing consecutive attack spells are challenging. Armia releases an ice arrow, striking the Phoenix and sending it crashing from the sky. Though it quickly regains its wings, Zeg is ready to confront it directly, but Narcina punches it down again, allowing Lost to deliver the final blow with his knife. After defeating the Phoenix, Lost praises Armia for her excellent work, crediting her magic for sealing their victory. Everyone agrees, and Armia, touched, begins to tear up, expressing her gratitude for their support. She collects the magic crystal from the defeated monster, and while the others celebrate, Lyra leans toward Zeg, noting Lost didn't transform this time. Zeg ponders the significance of Lost's previous transformation and decides to keep a closer watch on him. Later, they relax at the inn and encounter Ralma, who is already enjoying a drink. She inquires if they managed to defeat the Phoenix, and they wonder how she knows about it. Ralma chuckles, revealing she got a talkative girl to share the story for a bit of cash. Noticing their relaxed expressions, she concludes they must have indeed vanquished the monster. She playfully suggests they should use their reward money to treat her to dinner, but Lost knows she's more interested in drinks. As they sit down for a meal, Narcina remarks that she never realized food could taste this good before arriving here. Ralma rolls her eyes, dismissing the meal as nothing special, claiming even the meat is bland and tough. Sheila, the server, overhears and storms off, clearly displeased. Ralma laughs, telling Narcina to enjoy the soup since she won't find anything like it back at her mansion. Mentioning the mansion surprises the others, making them realize Narcina hasn't revealed her background. Ralma reveals that Narcina is actually the daughter of the Earl of Enelstria. Everyone is taken aback, and Lost finally pieces it together. She's the same girl he saved back then. Meanwhile, Handsome is filling Mist in on the mutation they encountered, mentioning Ralma is also in town. Mist decides he will need his disciples' assistance for whatever challenges lie ahead.